Hey, Polly.
Hey Greg, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good.
So today we have some of our newest coworkers on the show.
Oh, I feel like we have a lot of new coworkers.
Yeah, we do. Well, we're growing and we're
Yeah.
doing great. But the thing about these coworkers is they dropped our average age, in the office quite a bit. So, so today we will be talking to Georgie, who is the coordinator for our Portsmouth prevention, and JR, who is the coordinator for our Tiverton and Little Compton coalition. So it should be good. We're going to be talking a lot about pop culture, what's going on new, and what us old prevention people are missing.
Okay.
So by the end of this, we should have our Riz.
Okay. All
We
right.
should have our Riz points by the end of this podcast. So without further ado, joining us today on the Totally Preventable podcast, we have Georgie, the Portsmouth Prevention Coalition Coordinator, and JR, the Tiverton Little Compton Coalition Coordinator. How are you both doing today?
Great.
Wonderful. Great.
That's awesome. And to start, like we normally start off our podcast, can you each take turns and tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I'll go first. So I graduated from URI 2023 with a health science bachelor's. I went through all Portsmouth schools. I came to be in the field of prevention mostly through looking for my niche in healthcare because it's not being a doctor.
All right, JR.
So I'm originally from Massachusetts. I'm from a small town called Lunenburg. I graduated there. I attended the University of New England in Biddeford, Maine. I studied medical biology with a minor in health, medicine, and society. And I played football there. I went on to continue playing football as a master's student. I'm currently approaching the end of a master's degree in public health. I became interested in public health, I guess, when I took a public health and politics course through UNE. And I guess I moved to Rhode Island, um, and I was looking for a different career, I guess, related to the public health field, where I found this one in Newport County. And before this, I worked in an emergency room in Fall River. So I've always just been interested in the healthcare and public health field, and I think interested in like policy development and education, kind of, and how they connect.
Oh, thank you both for sharing.
That's great.
Well, now I feel like I have to share that I have a minor in psychology because I do.
Not just because you want to one up JR.
Yeah, always.
Duly noted.
Do you want to add something now, JR?
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, there's so much. Uh, I just really like helping others. I went on a service trip to Mexico as part of the chapter Unity for Habitat for Humanity, and I think that was a really eye-opening experience, experiencing different cultures and helping build homes for people that need them.
Okay. Well, I was a preschool teacher for 5 years,
All right.
and enough about us.
All right. So if your specific prevention work was a Netflix series, what would it be called and what would the trailer highlight?
I think I would do like a docu-series, like documentary, like kind of like real life based on like prevention today. And I think it could just be like an ongoing series about like new harm reduction methods and different prevention messaging tools, especially for like the youth today. And I think just highlighting like new and more unique ways that harm is being reduced around substance use, I guess. That's what. So nothing, I didn't really have anything super specific, but I guess the trailer could just highlight like an overview. Maybe it visits different parts of the country and highlights different attitudes towards prevention and maybe different regions of the United States or the whole world.
Mhm.
Um, I would say it would probably be called Empower Her because that's my women's initiative. And as far as a trailer highlight, I was imagining the opening scene of Barbie where they all smash those baby dolls. I think that would be my trailer scene.
All right.
I found this an interesting question, Greg, because I feel like prevention is different for everybody here, right? Like everyone takes what they like out of prevention and makes it their own and runs with it. So Georgie's method of being a prevention provider is very different from, maybe not like 360, but different from what JR focuses on and different from what our Newport coordinator focuses on. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah. See, that's how those big streaming channels keep their variety going. You know, same message, but everyone's got a different view on it. That's great. So can you both tell me about a moment in your prevention work where you thought, yep, this is what I do. This is why I do this.
I mean, for me, it's anytime I'm working with youth and seeing their faces light up. We do a lot of wellness workshop crafts with the youth, and just seeing how proud they are of their work and having it be prevention related, even though they're definitely not aware that it is so prevention related. So yeah, anytime kids are happy with the work that we're doing with them,
Was there,
reminds me
oh, sorry, go ahead.
just reminds me why I enjoy doing this.
Is there any particular time or any particular activity that you were doing that the kids really tugged at the heartstrings?
Well, the first craft I think that we did that was wellness focused was the snowman making. So probably at that first workshop that we did, I think it was at Hathaway, there was this one student who was really frustrated because he couldn't get his snowman to look right and he was, kind of throwing a fit. And it just took me reminding him, you're doing this to make yourself happy and to be proud. So it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to look like my snowman. And just seeing his face and mood kind of shift would probably be my pinpoint.
Great. JR?
I'd say mine's probably pretty similar, like interacting with students. I think, especially ones that are kind of just like looking for their way, they remind me of like myself in high school. And I think it's important to like realize that students can look up to us in this field and we can like be there for them. And I think also just being at community events and every once in a while you'll get like a person come up to you and just like thank you for the work you're doing and telling you how important it is, especially I think right now with a lot of stuff going on in the world where a lot of stuff people are questioning like efficiencies of things or where dollars are being spent. So I think it's important to like realize that this work is meaningful and we're making an impact on people. And I had a specific instance, and this was also at a snowman wellness workshop at Wilbur, where we were there for a Know Your Neuro Relab. We had a student kind of who was newer, like trauma dump in the class, and then came back on Friday to do the snowman workshop in his class, and at the end he was like showing me his snowman, and then I kind of moved on to work with another student. He like came over and just hugged me and thanked me, and I never really had an interaction. And this, first grader, I think, or maybe a second grader, but I never really had an interaction with a kid like that. So I think it's important to see that you're like going in the right direction. So thought that was pretty cool.
Awesome.
It was pretty cool.
Thank you for sharing.
Is there a strategy that you've used that you think everybody should use? Like every school, every community should just drop everything and use it?
I think I had a pretty unique experience playing football in college, and like that mix of like academia and sports, not everyone gets to be a part of. Not like saying as like brag or anything, but I think I came across like situations that would be like good examples for how policy should be shaped or enacted of like, it's a lot different when you're dealing with different age groups, like high school versus college or middle school, and when you're dealing with substance use and privileges versus rights and things like that. And so obviously like playing athletics is a privilege for students that deserve it, and it can be a powerful tool for substance use in general. So when when there's like an abuse of power that a student athlete can have on like a community, it's important for them to be good role models. So I think having strict policy is important. But like there's always a question of whether like athletes that get in trouble should they miss games or should they miss practice too. I think the way that our football team did it and players that maybe misbehaved out in the community or in the dorms or whatnot, and keeping them in practice and making them still show up to games and wearing the jersey and realizing the impact they have on their team by making wrong decisions is important. And I think that could be applied more broadly to different schools or areas, or I know like every school or school district kind of deals with that differently. So I think the way that our coach and our team had it was really like powerful and kind of straightforward.
Well, this is where me and JR differ greatly. I was thinking immediately about prevention at a young age. That's kind of my area of passion, but also I think that that's a really good strategy. I think that starting with very young kids and kind of helping them develop understanding of why it's important to make good choices and developing those skills very early on will save them in the future. By the time they're middle and high school, they'll have all the tools kind of under their belt that they need to succeed and say no to substances or whatever the risky behavior might be.
Now, you've mentioned middle, you've mentioned high school, you mentioned college. How do you keep things fresh? How do you keep your messages fresh with all these different demographics of students and youth?
I would say, I don't know, as a 24-year-old who is really like more at like a 6-year-old woman's level, I feel like I try my best to keep up with like what's cool and what's hot in different age groups. But I think I just embarrass myself trying to relate, saying words like Sigma and Riz and all that. But I think that that allows the youth that we do engage with to get at least they get a giggle out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, just tell them they're aura farmers. I learned that from my son.
What is it?
Tell them they're all aura farmers. I learned that one from my son. Like a
I
clout
don't
chase.
know what. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to keep prevention messages or messaging fresh. I've thought about having like some meme-based prevention programming, maybe with like the Costco guys. I think we could tap into that.
Mm.
You know, if something's like a boom or a doom. I think that would be good messaging, especially for like the youth demographic.
What's
Yeah.
a boom or a doom?
Like a boom, like when you give something like it gets a big boom or it gets 5 big boom, it's like good, and then when it's a doom, it's bad. So they give it a doom. So and then that they're tapped in with the Rizzler, so that
Okay. Okay.
Got it.
Related.
I don't know if they're probably too busy for the podcast, Greg. I don't know if you could get the Costco guys. They're also not super low.
Okay. Hey, well, you never know. Totally Preventable has pulled off more. Yeah.
So if you guys,
I think
go ahead, Georgie.
I was just gonna say, I think also just like knowing what the kids want. Like every time we go into the school, we certainly are not empty-handed. There needs to be some bribe, incentive, something. Of course, we make it prevention related. Like the brain stress balls that we give out when we do the Know Your Neuro readings, just things like that.
Mm.
Keep it, yeah, being present, having stuff or programming that is actually going to be interesting for the students.
I think that's important. I think sometimes the students might even let you know what they want if you're just listening.
That's right.
Like if they like a certain program, you can just keep rolling with it. If your prevention program had a theme song, what would it be?
So I think mine would be in line with my Empower Her initiative and program, and it would be This Girl Is on Fire.
Mm,
Okay.
It's just a very empowering song. I love Alicia Keys. Yeah, This Girl's on Fire.
JR, you too?
Well, I think that's a good one. That works good with your initiative. I guess one song I had stuck in my head that it's not necessarily about like substance use prevention, but I guess I don't know if this is like a love song, but "Go Your Own Way" by Fleetwood Mac. I was thinking like, like you go your own way and like make your own decisions and make healthier decisions for you in your direction or journey that you like want to go in. So
You know you're
that's a
gonna
good song.
catch some
So
heat for that selection, right?
what?
You know you're gonna catch some heat for that selection. We got a few
Why?
Targeted members that are gonna be mad that you didn't pick Eye of the Tiger, you know.
Yeah. Well, that is just a powerful song in any medium, but I think
I'm just giving you
I
fair warning.
that's fair. I will take all of that for that, but I didn't want to be partial to Tiverton and when I'm also a little confident, so
True.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Is that a love song?
I-
I
I
don't know.
don't know. I feel like I was really diving into the lyrics. It talks about being lonely. I don't know if that like in the chorus, but it's a catchy song. I
Yeah.
thought, like,
We're gonna
I
have
feel like
writing in
people are
about
watching
the
this,
meaning of
so
the song.
I think if people are watching this, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know that song."
right.
But,
So, like for our listeners who can tell that this the questioning is more geared towards a younger audience than our normal questioning, but they can tell like we have two of our younger coordinators on the podcast today. But what what made you choose prevention over professions of today, such as like influencers? What made you choose this route?
Well, I think I still am an influencer in many ways, but
Well,
I did not know.
you're gonna have to explain that. How are you still an influencer? Let us know.
No, I don't know. Let me come back to that part, but I think that I did not know prevention existed until I saw this job posting on Indeed. And then of course I called my dad and I'm like, what's prevention? It sounds like something you would know about because he's a firefighter. Um, and so then we got to talking and the job description was for the Portsmouth coordinator position, which I grew up in Portsmouth. So I was very familiar with it. And I think a lot of what I saw in the job description was giving back to the community, getting involved with community organizations, which is something I'm passionate about. So that's kind of how I ended up in prevention. Um, but yeah.
well, I had worked in an emergency room for 9 months, but I think I was always still kind of like always searching for not a new career, but just like another sort of path. I knew I wanted to be in like healthcare, public health, and I'm getting my master's degree, but I saw the job posting and I had seen a lot of the issues bringing people to the emergency room. And like, I had always had like in the back of my mind, like, God, a lot of these issues are like preventable. And then when I saw the prevention posting, I was like, this might be a sign. And I think applying, having not lived in Tiverton for a long time, I was a little unsure of, if I was like the right fit, but I had wanted to be involved in the community and like actually be able to make a difference. So I think it ended up being like a good fit. So I was glad I stumbled upon that job posting.
Okay.
I've got to say, even though Georgie didn't know it at the time, we had worked with her dad in the past as the fire
Oh.
chief, and we'd also worked with her brother.
Wow, connection.
Yeah. My brother, that's actually kind of how I started putting things together when I was looking into the coalition, I looked at the website, and the first thing that came up was a video of my brother. And I was like, wait a second. Um, so that was pretty cool. Yeah. And then going back to the influencer part, I'm not a social media influencer or anything like that. I think I consider myself an influencer, maybe not in this field of work, but just like in my own personal life. I feel like, especially taking what I'm learning here, like you can definitely tell that the people around me are like, so you work in prevention now, because I am so much more aware of everything, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of what I meant.
Do your
Did
friends
at
think you're a narc?
Wow.
No,
Yeah.
like people I know are like, oh, you and your narc job. I have never narked anyone out. But
No, either have I, but that's definitely like what I'm viewed as, a
Yeah.
narc. Like, oh, you tell people no, or you bust kids for using substances. And I'm like, well, no. I'm trying to help them find a better path
Right.
is really the end goal. But I'm definitely a lot more like conscious of what's going on around me, especially if I'm out with friends. Whereas before I, knew about prevention or was in this job, I just didn't think twice about a lot of things.
Have you ever been part of something here and been like, yes, this is why I'm working here. This is what I want to be a part of. Oh,
I feel
man.
like that a lot,
Oh,
but it's like, but in different ways. Like, I think that we can be really silly here, but still get our work done. And I definitely find a sense of belonging in that. When I worked at Newport Hospital before this, no shade, loved my job there, but I was in a room with no windows by myself for 8 hours a day. And I was just like going around bothering like the x-ray techs and such because I just needed to talk to somebody and be silly once in a while. I'd have them like push me down the hall on like the stretch. Totally like not allowed, but um I like I like the fun that we're able to have while still doing productive work here. I think it's a very unique job.
I think I've had a good experience working with everybody here so far, so I feel like, yeah, it's been good.
So
I was like,
JR.
You took a different angle
Oh,
this
yeah.
question. Yeah, gosh, that answer was totally preventable, I guess.
That's
No, I'm just gonna try to throw it in and get as many points as I can. I took a, I don't know, when I looked at this question, I took the angle like, not like who I'm working with, but who I'm working for. Like I
Mm.
wanted to make a difference in the community and felt like I want to work with like student athletes and be able to like give them the tools to be successful. So that's kind of where I was going with this, I guess. Sorry.
You want to say me again?
No, no, no. I don't know.
You guys are all right.
Next question.
So you both have very dynamic personalities. I could see how, youth and adults alike would just cling right on to you and listen to your passion and your devotion. And you both have, a great head on your shoulders and you know which way you want to take this path and this prevention work. Who were some of your role models growing up and how did they influence the way you show up today?
Um, One of the role models I had down was my dad. Um, he was always coaching me in sports growing up, and he always worked really hard in his field and career. So I think just having like that mentality of, giving back in some capacity, like he did with coaching and being a part of the community, and then just also like being able to put your head down and work hard and get what you need to get done. And so I feel like those are a couple of things that really resonate to me to this day, that like that blue collar mentality.
All right.
My dad is my role model. But I don't think my younger self would have had that answer. It probably would have been my sister. But I would definitely say that reflecting back now, my dad is definitely my role model. He taught me to always be patient. He was always very patient with me. You know, being a teenage girl, I was not super pleasant to be around all the time. So he taught me the importance of patience. He also was my hugest mental health advocate growing up. You know, without getting too deep into it, he was always there for me. He introduced me to a lot of mental health resources when I was very young that I think I'm very grateful to have had someone like that in my life, just because not everyone's so lucky. I had a lot of friends growing up whose parents, you know, didn't believe in counseling, didn't believe in therapy. And I don't know what I would have done if my dad didn't, you know, push me to get help back then. So yeah, I would say my dad.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Fast forwarding 5 years. What's one thing that you hope your work has achieved that you'd look back and fist bump your younger self?
I would hope, in terms of prevention, I want in 5 years for vapes to be taboo and teens to think that they are so disgusting and not cool. And yeah, I don't want them to be viewed as something that everyone's doing and it's the cool thing. I hope that in 5 years, everyone realizes and makes the social norm that vapes are disgusting and taboo.
Hmm. I thought you were going to say something about having tons of young women in your Empower Her group.
That is also something for sure. I hope that Empower Her takes over and I'm a billionaire queen somewhere with all of these women just happy and empowered and yeah.
I had like time traveling abilities.
Yes.
Uh, so I thought about this like if I could just take just one person and maybe it's like one program we do or one conversation I have with maybe it's a student or a community member or whoever, but just like one moment in time where I help that person make maybe one small decision that changed multiple decisions they make in the future, or puts them on a different journey or path to a healthier, better life. And that, you know, saves the greater community from maybe like heartbreak or like a tragedy or something where, you know, that could just be like, I don't know, I guess just helping at least one person change their route that they're going in their life.
Good answer.
Your answers are so wholesome.
Yeah. There's no crown involved in JR.
I think I've been told like that story, like if you were to like time travel backwards and like kill a butterfly, and then all of a sudden you go back in the future, and all of a sudden you're in like you're under like the dictator's rule or something really bad, or like Earth is like an apocalypse or something. Think about that.
Noted.
Okay.
Well,
Took us down a whole different
Yeah.
lane on that one.
Kind of a
Okay.
bummer.
Just brought us way down.
I think about chain reactions a lot. It's kind of like chemistry.
So you both are fairly new to this prevention work. But in your short time being in prevention, you've been doing a lot of work, a lot of community outreach, a lot of relationship building. What's one gap that you're noticing that isn't being talked about in prevention?
This is a tough one, and I don't know if this is exactly the angle you were going for with this question. And not to get too political, but I think in the current political climate, a gap we're running into is, you know, the DEI related initiatives that we offer. Yeah, I think that's kind of self-explanatory. That would be the one gap that I could think of off the top of my head. I don't know if you have a better answer, JR.
I've thought about like society as a whole. I mean, we kind of embellish and just like make like substance use so accessible in so many ways. And I mean, the way that we're just allowing large corporations to market to our youth these devices and tailor them to younger people and get them hooked early, it's kind of just like a repeating cycle that you saw with like big tobacco and now these vaping devices. So I think just like, and the regulations that we go through and like the laws and how there's loopholes to things. And I think, we don't always just as a society take like people's health into account on these things. And that's just, I think, our country's like healthcare system as a whole too doesn't really, it's not always like for the people. It's sometimes just like money grab or
Mm.
and I think it's being talked about, but there's just like I think people feel powerless sometimes in this. It's whoever, who has the power on one side who doesn't.
I also sometimes don't think people that have the ability to make the change know how bad some things are. Like they don't realize how much kids are marketed to. Like, you think, oh yeah, that's strawberry flavored, sure. But you don't see all of the things that are out there, like it's endless.
Right.
So sometimes I
Okay.
think, how do people not know this? But this is all we hear all day as prevention people. And I think a lot of that's our job, I guess,
Right.
to educate everybody else as well. But it is sometimes alarming.
Yeah.
Is it my turn again,
It
Greg?
is your turn.
It's like I don't see you guys every day.
We're fascinating.
Today you are. If budget and stigma were not an issue, what project would you launch tomorrow?
Mhm.
I think I just built off that last question. Like I thought about like just taking down these big corporations that are marketing products to youth, and not that there's necessarily like a stigma around that, I guess, but I guess like budget wise, it's hard to fight these big corporations, I think, like
Mhm.
whether it's like through like the judicial system or whatnot.
Mhm.
Um, so again, your answers are so wholesome, and then my answers are just, I would do a free to all beauty salon. Because I think everyone deserves to feel pretty, whether or not you can pay for a $300 haircut nowadays. So I think that I would have a beauty salon open to anyone. Um, all services free somehow. And you can go in there. It can be anything from skincare to a massage, a facial, uh, a makeover. That would be my dream.
So,
I've got a project for you to get you on.
Okay.
We noticed at the breakfast, some people are getting a little scruffy this morning and they need some haircuts. So we need to
Okay.
get some people some nice haircuts. Maybe not $300 haircuts, but nice hair.
Okay.
Okay?
Maybe some hair products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that too.
all right.
Yeah.
This is your exclusive, Greg.
There
Greg
we
likes
go.
an exclusive
Exclusive.
every.
That's right. Now, in this, oh, go ahead. You had a question.
No, never mind.
In this big social media world where influencers are everything, ideally, if you could, what would be influencers that you would partner with to help push your prevention campaign and prevention messages along?
Well, I already talked about the Costco guys.
I don't know the Costco guys.
Me
I
either.
know about that, and the Rizzler. I think
Isn't the
big
Rizzler
social
a local celebrity?
what?
Is the Rizzler a local celebrity?
Local to the United States. Yeah, I
Oh,
think they're from like New Jersey.
okay. No, I gotta look him up too. Never mind.
Um, I was just thinking like for New England, like I think Tom Brady, he's the GOAT. I think people listen to him. He's a huge personality. He kind of like rewrote a lot of, attitudes surrounding health and wellness for football players through like his diet, the TB12 method. So I think getting him on like some substance use prevention look cool. Except then like people be like, oh well, he was so drunk at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers championship parade. What about? But I mean, I don't know. He's just like the greatest athlete of all time. So I think that's powerful if he was on a prevention campaign. I don't know.
What about his avocado ice cream?
Yeah, well, I think he was. I think he was drinking avocado tequila. So I don't know.
Hey, he's over 21. We're not answering that,
Yeah, no,
That's true.
pretty sure he had.
yeah. I guess if the one time you use a substance is after you win a Super Bowl, I guess that's like when you gotta do it. I
We
guess.
all have to celebrate somehow.
Yeah.
Um, for me, it would
Yeah,
be
If you're over 21 and
If you're over
responsible.
21.
um Selena Gomez
Hmm.
because well, she's always been my favorite ever since she was with Justin Bieber and on Disney Channel. But I think now I'm pretty sure maybe I don't know. I'm pretty positive she has the most followers on Instagram ever. It's either her or Kylie Jenner. I hope it's her. But I would say her because she has come to really, she speaks out a lot on mental health and body positivity. So she's a really good influence for young women right now, and she uses her platform for good.
That's good. It's important.
So, what pop culture moment, all these pop culture questions, what pop culture moment made you wish that there had been a better prevention message behind it? Maybe all of them. No.
Right. I don't even know if this is considered pop culture, but America's Next Top Model was something I always watched growing up.
Mhm.
It was like my sick day show. It was always on cable. And if I were to watch that back now, because sometimes I see clips, it is just astonishing and really, really toxic. So I guess I would say I wish there was a different message behind that because a lot of the messages that they're sending in that show is that, you're never going to be skinny enough. Um, and there's a lot of like culture, negative culture around eating, um, and just like girl on girl hate and judgment and body criticism. So yeah, I would pick to maybe never let that show air ever again.
What you got, JR?
I w- my answer's pretty broad. I guess I was just thinking about like the use of social media in general and like how it's can be used for good, like connecting people, like I don't know, like it can be used for educational reasons, but like the bad parts of it are like cyberbullying and like the distribution of like harmful like devices and like the romanticizing of substance use. Um, I guess like if there's like a powerful or popular influencer that uses a specific substance, then that can like blow up in like younger the younger generation. So I think it's important to like use a tool like that for good versus bad.
Mhm.
Now, kind of going along with that question, if you could rewrite one popular movie or TV scene to send a better prevention message to the youth, what would that be?
Well, going off my last answer, I would say to not have a show like America's Next Top Model where, they're judging women simply based on their looks, appearance, and body. But another show that comes to mind was another one I grew up watching, Pretty Little Liars. But it's very similar. There was this one character, Hannah, in the show, and she was, made out to be, at first she was like overweight and then she lost a bunch of weight But then you see when she loses a bunch of weight, when she goes to eat, the other girls are like food shaming her and bullying her, and they keep bringing up, fat Hannah. Um, and I just remember watching that growing up, not thinking anything of it. But then maybe it shaped my behaviors differently with food when I was younger. But now reflecting back on it, I just realized how problematic that is. Because it really was a big part of the show and her character.
I watched, like a few years ago, I watched the popular series Euphoria on HBO,
Yeah.
and I think I just remember like I remember I think there's 2 seasons, but I remember at some point the main character was played by I think Zendaya, is that how you say it? Zendaya. Um, there's this character Rue, and they really like the way that they captured her scene when she relapsed. Like it really kind of like I don't know, made it like cool. It like romanticized it. So I think that was really like misleading. Like she's making a terrible decision and going down this path again after she had been like clean from substance use for a bit, and now I don't know the way that they like filmed that scene and made it kind of like made it seem like a good thing. I don't know. So I would definitely like rewrite or change like scenes like those and shows that just like embellish substance use or make it seem cool.
I feel like that series too had such a young person following that um yes, I agree. The messaging should have been different. That it
Yeah.
so many young kids were watching it and making it sound like a good time instead, they never really, I don't know, I didn't follow it through the end, but I don't think there was ever a corner turned where some better message was brought out in the series. So
No, that series is pretty problematic, especially like you said, because of the amount of youth that watches it.
and I suppose maybe the producers don't realize it when they're making it, that it's going to be a young person series, right? But
Right.
something you need to think
Which
about,
is interesting because it's about high schoolers, right? So like
right?
who's gonna
Watch it besides high schoolers.
watch?
I mean,
Right, exactly. I
Right.
mean, sure, they're like 40-year-olds playing high schoolers, but still.
right. Mm. Um, what do you think the biggest myth about youth and substance prevention is today?
I think the line like that, like everyone's doing it and it's cool, fun, or necessary to fit in resonates with me because not like when it comes down to it, like not everyone is using a substance or not everyone is, vaping or drinking or but usually that's like all you hear. Like if you're in the hallway on a Monday, you hear about people who had a crazy Saturday versus people who just did the usual. So I think that's kind of like a common misconception.
Yeah, I would say a myth would be, I think a lot of young people think that driving under the influence of marijuana is fine. And it's not as bad as driving drunk.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a big myth. I think it's just as dangerous. We listened to a great speaker at a cannabis symposium a couple months ago, Jordan, and he did a presentation about this, and it was really, it was kind of silly. He was making some jokes, but it was really true about, it's just as bad to be driving slow or in the wrong lane or stopping at green lights as it is to be driving drunk and maybe going over the median or whatnot. So I think that is a myth that a lot of young new drivers think is true. I can smoke my cannabis pen and I'll still be fine to drive home.
This has been great, getting a different perspective, a younger perspective
Mm-hmm.
to a lot of the prevention work. A lot of times in prevention, we hear, we've been doing the same thing over and over and over again, and that there's new blood needed and new ideas. And I think you two are a great representation of what's next in line for prevention. I think prevention is being left in some great hands. And I want to thank you for taking
Are
the
you
time.
leaving, Greg?
No.
Oh. Kind of.
I'm giving them their flowers while they're here, you know? But I just want to thank you both for your time and you know, putting and giving us your take on what prevention looks like to you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I think we should add that if anyone in your communities is interested in getting involved in the coalitions, that there's plenty of opportunities, but you guys also have meetings that are open to the public. Do you know when they are off the top of your heads?
So for Portsmouth, we're in the midst of possibly changing our meeting time and day, but for now, we meet on every second Wednesday of the month at 8:30 a.m. Here at our office in Portsmouth. So people can reach out to me, and I can give you the address of our office.
The Tiverton Little Company. Usually on the last Tuesday of the month at 3:30 on Zoom. Sometimes it gets bumped up to the week prior on that Tuesday, depending on holidays or their conflicts. But yeah, we're also looking at maybe having some in-person meetings, at least quarterly, to get more people to the table. But yeah, we
Okay.
want to.
People could
Yeah,
also check out our website, strategicprevention.org. We have a calendar and both your contact information is on there as well. So phones are going to be ringing off the hook around here.
Oh yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you both very
you.
much. Good to see you.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
See you later.